There's a quiet crisis unfolding in garages across Canada, and most people won't notice it until the day their car breaks down. Walk into an auto shop in Winnipeg or Hamilton or Surrey and ask the owner what their biggest problem is in 2026. It won't be parts. It won't be customers. It'll be this: they cannot find anyone to fix your car. The mechanics are leaving, not retiring quietly at the end of long careers. Walking away. Mid-career, skilled, experienced technicians are putting down their tools and never coming back. And the young people who used to fill those spots? They're not showing up either. Nobody wants these jobs anymore. If you own a car in Canada, this affects you directly and probably sooner than you think. Because when the people who keep this country's vehicles running decide the job isn't worth it, everything downstream breaks. Your repair costs, your wait times, your ability to keep the car you depend on actually on the road. But the reason they're leaving is the part that should really worry you, because it isn't really about cars at all. Let's start with what's actually happening. Across Canada, auto shops report the same story on repeat. Job postings that sit open for months with almost no qualified applicants. Bays sitting empty because there's nobody to work them. Owners turning away business, actually turning away paying customers, because they physically cannot do the work. Wait times tell the story too. Repairs that used to take a few days now stretch into weeks in some places. Try booking a service appointment, and you might find yourself waiting far longer than you ever did before. That's not because Canadians suddenly need more repairs. It's because there are fewer and fewer hands to do them. And here's the part that makes it worse. The average age of working mechanics keeps climbing. The experienced technicians who've kept this trade alive are getting older, and there's no wave of young people coming up behind them to take their place. Do the math on that, and you're looking at a shortage that gets significantly worse every single year. So how did we get here? How did a respected, essential, skilled trade become a job that nobody wants? The first reason is the money, and specifically, the gap between what the job pays and what life in Canada now costs. For a long time, being a mechanic was a solid path. It was a trade you could build a life on. You could buy a home, raise a family, take a vacation. That was the deal. But over the last several years, that deal quietly broke. Wages in the trade have not kept pace with what has happened to rent, to mortgages, to groceries, to insurance in this country. A mechanic working full-time, doing skilled, physical, demanding work can look at their paycheck and realize it no longer covers the life it used to buy. The house is out of reach. The savings aren't growing. The math simply doesn't work anymore. And when a hard job stops paying for a decent life, people leave. That's not laziness. That's arithmetic. The second reason is the cost of even entering the trade in the first place, and this one is genuinely brutal. Here's something most people outside the industry don't realize. In most shops, mechanics have to buy their own tools, not a screwdriver and a wrench, a full professional tool set. And a serious set of tools represents an enormous investment. We're talking about a cost that can climb into the tens of thousands of dollars over a career, with tool trucks rolling up to the shop, offering financing plans to workers who are already stretched. So imagine you're a young Canadian deciding what to do with your life. On one path, you go into the trades, take on schooling costs, then spend years buying tools out of your own pocket just to be allowed to do the job, for a wage that won't get you a home. On the other path, you take almost any other job that doesn't require you to spend thousands of dollars before you earn a dollar. Which one are you choosing? That's the trap. The trade asks workers to invest heavily up front in a career whose payoff keeps shrinking. The third reason is the work itself and how much harder it's become. Modern vehicles are not the machines this trade was built on. They're computers on wheels. A single car might carry dozens of electronic control units, layers of software, sensors buried in every corner. Fixing them isn't just a matter of skill with a wrench anymore. It requires expensive diagnostic equipment, constant retraining, and access to manufacturer software that shops sometimes have to pay significant fees just to use. So the job got harder. It got more technical. It demands more of your brain and more of your time. And here's the insult. For a lot of technicians, the pay didn't rise to match. More skill required, more training required, more expense required, and the same struggling paycheck at the end of it. Now here's the real reason mechanics are walking away, and it's the one you'll rarely hear said out loud. It's not just the wages, it's not just the tools, it's the feeling that the deal is fundamentally unfair. Think about what a mechanic actually does. They keep this country moving. They keep parents able to drive kids to school. They keep tradespeople able to reach job sites. They keep the entire economy rolling on wheels. It's essential, skilled, physically punishing work. Cold garages in the Canadian winter, cuts and burns, chemicals, backs and knees wearing out year after year. And in return, many of them watch the shop bill the customer a high hourly rate, take home a fraction of it, buy their own tools, pay for their own training, and still not be able to afford a house in the city they work in. They look at that equation, and something inside them breaks. Not their body, their belief. The belief that if you work hard at an honest, skilled trade in Canada, the country will hold up its end, and once that belief goes, the tools go down. Let me show you what this looks like in a real life. Picture a technician in her late 30s working in a shop in the Greater Toronto area. 14 years in the trade. She's good, really good. She can diagnose things the younger guys can't. She's spent something like $30,000 on her tools over her career, paid for out of her own earnings. She works long days, comes home with her hands cracked from the cold and the solvent. And she cannot afford a home anywhere near the shop she works at. Her rent takes a savage bite out of every check. And one afternoon, she gets talking to a friend who works in a warehouse or drives a delivery route or took a job in logistics, someone who bought zero tools, took on zero training debt, whose body isn't being slowly destroyed. And she realizes they take home about the same. That's the moment. That's when a mechanic quits. Not in anger. Just quietly, with the grim clarity of someone who finally did the math. Now multiply that woman by thousands, across every province in this country. That's the shortage, and this is where it stops being a story about mechanics and becomes a story about Canada. Because what's happening in the garages is happening everywhere. It's happening in nursing. It's happening in construction. It's happening in every skilled, essential trade where the pay has quietly detached from the cost of living. The mechanics are simply the ones we notice first, because we all feel it the moment our car won't start. The shortage is going to cost you directly. Fewer mechanics means longer waits. Longer waits and higher demand mean higher labor rates. And higher labor rates mean that the repair bill on your vehicle, a vehicle you probably already paid too much for, keeps climbing. Some Canadians will hit a point where a repair costs more than they can justify, and the car simply comes off the road. And in most of this country, losing your car means losing your access to work. That's how a labor shortage in a garage turns into a household crisis at a kitchen table. So where does this go? The industry will try the obvious things: recruitment campaigns, training incentives, signing bonuses. But you cannot fix this with a poster. The people who left didn't leave because nobody asked them to stay. They left because the numbers stopped working. Until the pay in this trade rises to match the cost of living in Canada, and until the trade stops asking workers to personally finance their own careers, the bays are going to stay empty. And it leaves us with an uncomfortable question about this country. What happens to a nation when the people who fix things, build things, and keep things running decide they can no longer afford to do it? I want to hear from you on this one. Are you a mechanic or in the trades? Have you thought about walking away, or have you already? And have you noticed your repair bills and wait times? Climbing where you live? Drop it in the comments below, because these stories matter and I read every one. And if you want honest breakdowns of what's really happening across Canada, the shifts that hit your wallet before they ever hit the headlines, subscribe to Canada Insider. there's a lot more of this story to tell.